Israel-Iran war live nuclear scientist. 4 IRGC members killed. Pakistan passes resolution backing Tehran. Israel-Iran conflict live updates. Israel and Iran exchanged a fresh wave of missile attacks overnight into Sunday, escalating tensions and raising fears of a wider regional conflict. Iran launched missiles at targets across Israel, including the port city of Haifa, after Israeli forces bombed civilian and energy infrastructure across Iran. Early Sunday, Israel's military announced it had struck the Iranian Defense Ministry headquarters in Tehran. It also claimed to have hit several locations around the capital that it described as being related to the Iranian regime's nuclear weapons project. These sites, according to Israel's military, were connected to Iran's nuclear ambitions, though both U.S. intelligence agencies and the International Atomic Energy Agency have stated that Iran was not developing a nuclear weapon prior to Israel's attack. This escalation comes after Israeli armed forces launched an unprecedented attack on Iran and conducted multiple overnight airstrikes, targeting Iran's nuclear and military sites under Operation Rising Lion. Iranian media has said that Israeli attacks have killed at least 80 people and wounded 800 others over the past 2 days. Justifying the strikes, Israel has said that it had intel indicating that Iran's nuclear program had almost reached the point of no return. Russian President Vladimir Putin denounced the recent Israeli airstrikes on Iran, echoing his prior criticism of attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities. Following the airstrikes, the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks scheduled for Sunday in Oman were called off. Explosions were heard in several areas of Iran's capital Tehran as Israeli strikes continued. Heavy traffic has been seen at major exit points from Tehran as Israeli strikes targeted several areas in the Iranian capital, according to local media. Reports. Metro stations and mosques would be available as bomb shelters for the public. Iranian media reported government spokesperson Fatma Mohajerani as saying. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said Iran must never have nuclear weapons, as Israeli strikes dealt a huge blow to its nuclear capabilities. The Israeli military said its air force targeted more than 80 positions in Iran's capital Tehran, including the headquarters of the Iranian Ministry of Defense, the headquarters of the nuclear project SPND, on the third day of the conflict between the two archenemies. Satellite images shared by geointelligence expert Damian Simon showed extensive damage at Iran's Hamdan airbase after Israel's recent strikes, with multiple aircraft shelters compromised. Britain's Foreign Office on Sunday issued updated guidance to citizens advising against all travel to Israel following the outbreak of conflict with Iran. The Pakistan Senate on Sunday passed a resolution backing Iran against Israeli strikes. The Senate accused Israel of committing a war crime by attacking our neighbor and brotherly country and said it was a blatant violation of international norms. 4 members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC were killed in Israeli strikes targeting the Almaty military base in the northwestern city of Urmia, as per Iranian media. The dead were identified as Maysam Khalili, Ramin Valizadeh, Saeed Rizai, and Akbar Faden. Another nuclear scientist from Iran has been killed in an Israeli strike. According to local media reports. Iranian media said Sunday that police had arrested 2 suspects over alleged links to Israel's Mossad spy agency, on the third day of heavy exchange of fire between the two foes. Major General Haytami: the army will strike effective and decisive blows against Israel. Parents and guardians can contact the control room to share details of their wards through the following landline numbers: 0194 248 3651, 0194 245 7543, 0194 245 7552. WhatsApp numbers 91910399835. Overnight, Iranian strikes killed at least 10 people in Israel, adding to the growing toll in both countries since Friday when Israel launched a massive wave of attacks targeting Iranian nuclear and military facilities, sparking retaliation. Operations at the Isfahan refinery continue without disruption, Iran's oil ministry told state media on Sunday, denying reports of an incident or attack against the facility. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Sunday that Israel's attack on his country this week sought to derail nuclear talks with the United States. It is entirely clear that the Israeli regime does not want any agreement on the nuclear issue. It does not want negotiations and does not seek diplomacy, Araghchi told foreign diplomats as reported by AFP. saying the attack launched on Friday was an attempt to undermine diplomacy and derail negotiations. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, making his first public appearance since Israeli airstrikes began Friday, said Sunday that Tehran would halt its retaliation if Israel stops its attacks, according to the Associated Press. If the aggression stops, our responses will also stop. Araghchi said during a meeting with diplomats in Tehran. There was no immediate response from Israel, which continued striking multiple locations in Iran throughout Sunday. Jordan announced the reopening of its airspace Sunday morning after a night of attacks by arch-foes Israel and Iran. The Civil Aviation Authority in Jordan, which borders Israel, said in a statement that the country's airspace had been reopened for civilian flights following a careful risk assessment. The kingdom had closed the airspace late Saturday, its second closure since the start of the most intense direct confrontation between Israel and Iran. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Sunday Tehran had evidence to show U.S. forces supported the intense bombardment campaign Israel launched against the Islamist Republic this week. We have solid proof of the support of the American forces and American bases in the region for the attacks of the Zionist regime military forces, Araghchi told foreign diplomats in a meeting broadcast on state TV. Iranian missile fire on Israel killed at least 10 people overnight, authorities said Sunday, as the foes exchanged new waves of attacks in their most intense confrontation in history. In Iran, a heavy cloud of smoke billowed over the capital after Israeli aircraft struck two fuel depots. For days, Iranians have formed long queues at gas stations fearing shortages. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Sunday that Washington had nothing to do with ally Israel's intense bombardment campaign that was launched early Friday, targeting key military and nuclear sites in Iran. Amid conflict with Israel, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Sunday that the latest Israeli assault on Iran was intended to derail nuclear discussions with the U.S., AFP reported. It is entirely clear that the Israeli regime does not want any agreement on the nuclear issue. It does not want negotiations and does not seek diplomacy, Araghchi told foreign diplomats, calling the Friday strikes an attempt to undermine diplomacy and derail negotiations. The Israeli military warned Iranians on Sunday to immediately evacuate military weapons production factories, likely signaling new strikes are coming. Col Avikay Adri, a military spokesperson, posted the warning on the social platform X in Iran's Farsi language. Adri in the past has signaled other strikes in the Gaza Strip, Lebanon, and Yemen amid the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. Israel unleashed airstrikes across Iran for a third day on Sunday and threatened even greater force as some Iranian missiles evaded Israeli air defenses to strike buildings in the heart of the country. Planned talks on Iran's nuclear program, which could provide an off-ramp, were called off. The region braced for a protracted conflict after Israel's surprise bombardment of Iran's nuclear and military sites on Friday killed several top generals and nuclear scientists, and neither side showed any sign of backing down. Israel reportedly targeted a gas installation, raising the prospect of a broader assault on Iran's heavily sanctioned energy industry that could affect global markets. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed full support for Israel's actions while warning Iran that it can only avoid further destruction by agreeing to a new nuclear deal. Israeli President Isaac Herzog says the country has experienced a very sad and difficult morning after the Iranian missile strikes killed at least 8 people and injured dozens more. Denouncing what he described as criminal Iranian attacks, Herzog said in a post on X that he would pray for the wounded to recover and for the Israelis who are still missing to be found. President Donald Trump says the U.S. is not involved in the latest conflict between Israel and Iran. The U.S. had nothing to do with the attack on Iran, tonight, Trump has said in a post on Truth Social. Iran has warned the U.S. and its allies not to help Israel stop Tehran's retaliatory strikes. If we are attacked in any way, shape, or form by Iran, the full strength and might of the U.S. armed forces will come down on you at levels never seen before, Trump adds. However, we can easily get a deal done between Iran and Israel, and end this bloody conflict. As Israel and Iran launched new waves of attacks on each other late Saturday, here are the places that have been hit in Iran. Iran's oil ministry said that Israeli strikes had targeted Shahran oil depot and a fuel tank in Tehran. The situation was under control at both of these sites, the ministry said. The oil ministry also said that 2 major gas fields in the southern Bushehr province were attacked by Israel. Israeli strikes also targeted the country's defense ministry in Tehran, slightly damaging one of the office buildings, as well as the ministry's Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research, according to Iranian media and the IDF. These sites were targeted because of their association with Iran's nuclear weapons project, the IDF said. The Chinese foreign minister has held phone calls with his counterparts in Iran and Israel. In his call with Gideon Sa'ar, the Israeli foreign minister, Wang said China clearly opposes Israel's violation of international law by attacking Iran with force, especially when the international community is still seeking a political solution to the Iranian nuclear issue. The American president has warned that if the US is attacked in any way, shape, or form by Iran, the full strength and might of the US armed forces will come down on you at levels never seen before. However, we can easily get a deal done between Iran and Israel, and end this bloody conflict. He wrote in a post on Truth Social. 3 people have died and more than 100 injured in an Iranian strike on a building in Bat Yam, just south of Tel Aviv, according to Israeli emergency services. Iranian civil aviation authorities have extended the closure of the country's airspace. Israel launched an expanded assault on Iran on Sunday, with direct strikes targeting its energy industry and defense ministry headquarters, while Tehran unleashed a fresh barrage of missiles blamed for the deaths of 4 people. New explosions boomed across Tehran as Iranian missiles entered Israel's skies in an attack that Israeli emergency officials said killed 4 people in an apartment building in the Galilee region. Iran launched a second round of missiles against Israel late Saturday as Israel's military kept up attacks in Iran following earlier strikes that targeted nuclear and military sites. They also killed key leaders in the country's governing theocracy. Israel said hundreds of airstrikes over the past 2 days killed 9 senior scientists and experts involved in Iran's nuclear program, in addition to several top generals. Iran's UN ambassador said 78 people were killed and more than 320 wounded. The US and Iran had been scheduled to hold their 6th round of indirect talks over Iran's nuclear program on Sunday in Oman, but Oman's foreign minister said that the meeting was cancelled after Israel's strikes on Iran. At least 60 people, including 29 children, were killed in Tehran after a housing complex was struck amid a fresh wave of Israeli airstrikes, Iranian officials said on Sunday. In total, 78 deaths were reported in the first 2 days of Israeli strikes in Iran. Visuals showed buildings flattened, and upper floors collapsing into the street. An Israeli airstrike on a residential high-rise in the Iranian capital, Tehran, has killed at least 60 people, including 29 children, according to authorities. Israel's ambulance service said 3 women were killed, and 10 other people injured in an earlier missile strike near a house in northern Israel. The latest US-Iran talks on Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program will not take place on Sunday, mediator Oman said on Saturday, while Iran launched another missile barrage a day after Israel's blistering attack on Iranian nuclear and military sites. Both Israel's military and Iran's state television announced the latest round of missiles as explosions were heard overhead in parts of Israel, including Tel Aviv, less than an hour before midnight. Fire officials reported a collapsed building in the north. Neighboring Jordan said it has closed its airspace. Israel's military quickly noted that it was currently striking military targets in Tehran, where witnesses said they heard at least 2 strong explosions, in the city's northeast and western areas. Pope Leo XIV on Saturday expressed concern over the Israel-Iran war and continued armed exchanges between the 2 sides over the next 24 hours. He appealed for responsibility and reason and commitment to build a safer world, free from nuclear threats. In a post on X, he said on Saturday, "The situation in Iran and Israel has deteriorated drastically. I renew my appeal to responsibility and reason. The commitment to build a safer world, free from nuclear threats, must be pursued through mutual respect and sincere dialogue, in order to build lasting peace founded on justice, fraternity, and the common good. No one should ever threaten the existence of another. It is the duty of all countries to support the cause of peace, initiating paths of reconciliation and promoting solutions that ensure security and dignity for all." Iran has partially suspended gas production at the world's biggest gas field after an Israeli strike caused a fire there on Saturday, the semi-official Tasnim news agency reported, in what would be the first Israeli strike on Iran's oil and gas sector. Iran shares the South Pars gas field with Qatar. Striking it would mark a major escalation in the conflict, which had already pushed oil prices up 9 on Friday even though Israel spared Iran's oil and gas on the first day of its attacks. Israel launched an air offensive against Iran on Friday, killing commanders and scientists and bombing nuclear sites in a stated bid to stop Tehran building an atomic weapon. Iranian Parliament's Security Commission said the country was seriously reviewing the possible closure of the strait in response to Israel's attacks. The strait carries between 18 and 20 million barrels per day, so almost 20% of the global oil market passes through the Strait of Hormuz. There is no real easy alternative route out of that area for Saudi Arabia, for Kuwait. US President Donald Trump said on Saturday this war in Israel-Iran should end, with his comments coming in a social media post on his call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Iran has threatened to attack Western bases in the Middle East if those countries provide further support Israel. If that happens, then Western military assets, the US in particular, but also that of the UK, it really could expand what is such a serious situation to other countries, reported Al Jazeera. Latest blogs.